What a year for D&D in 2023. What a terrible year. Let's talk about it. Oh, hello everybody, Jordan here. The PH is silent. If you're new here, I usually make videos about lore, but today we're talking about 2023, the year of Dungeons and Dragons that shouldn't have happened. There's a lot that happened with D&D and the tabletop RPG sphere, I guess, if we want to call it that. And it was just a really challenging, weird, awful year. And I kind of want to go over some of the highlights, both the bad and the good, I suppose. So let's dive in. First of all, January 2023, the OGL got leaked. And thank God that somebody had the chutzpah to go and leak that out, because it was awful. It was going to really put a damper on all of the people that help make fantasy tabletop RPGs awesome. You know, Paizo helps make D&D awesome. MCDM helps make D&D awesome. Monica Games and all of the OSR and all those other, like, they all make D&D awesome because D&D isn't what Hasbro makes. It's what all of us kind of do together. And I think that's one of the big reasons that a lot of people love Dungeons and Dragons, is because of that. Like, we're all building this together. Isn't it cool that we share this really cool thing with one another? But Hasbro doesn't see it that way. And so this leaked OGL came out, which was 100% going to replace the regular OGL, which everyone thought wasn't ever going to happen or couldn't happen. And they got a lot of backlash for it. And I'm glad, because that was dumb. But it makes me think of the in-shitification of social media platforms and how, like, even YouTube, the reason Facebook, the reason Twitter, all of those things succeed is because interesting people are making interesting things for that platform. But the people who own that platform are like, I don't care about you. It's my platform. Like, you don't. No, I own Twitter or I own Facebook. It's not like people come because they like Facebook. Like, I made Facebook. But it's like, no, people go there because they like what you make. And I feel in a way D&D was like that. And Hasbro was like, here's D&D, but we all kind of have this thing and make things for D&D and we make it better and awesome. And then Hasbro was like, well, actually, we're D&D. And it's like, oh, and they put the brakes on all of that and really hurt the community. And it was hard to justify making videos on this channel to sell more Dungeons and Dragons when I didn't like Dungeons and Dragons all of a sudden, because I didn't like Hasbro. And I had to come to terms with that, where I didn't like Hasbro. I still love D&D. I still love a lot of these worlds that I'm making videos on and all that other stuff, but it's hard to give Hasbro the time of day when they're a company that's acting like this. And then I had my own kind of, then later on we had the AI debacle with, there was AI altered art in Bigby's Glory of the Giants. And I don't know, I didn't even buy that book because I was so cut off from Hasbro at that point. I just didn't want to buy any of their products. But that was a big one where, you know, there weren't people doing checks, and you think about a company that's trying to cut costs, and I don't know. That one was, I guess, a controversy. I don't think people should be using AI art in that way, or we should know ahead of time if we're supporting an actual artist or not. But that was a little odd. But then they decided to close out the year by having 1,000 plus people lay off at Hasbro, and a lot of really good people whose love of the game led them to Wizards of the Coast to work for Hasbro. And when all of a sudden you get to work on this thing that you love your whole life, that you've been building towards, and then you have somebody who's never even touched a set of dice basically decide your fate of, well, you don't get to do this anymore. That's really, really sad. And it, again, points at profit margins over people, and I can't get behind that. And so all of a sudden I'm having these conflicting emotions of like, I don't like D&D anymore, but I love D&D, but I don't like Hasbro. Let's just look at this like what happened in the year of 2023. And I'm glancing over at my notes because I took some notes here, but Tyranny of Dragons came out in January, and then Keys from the Golden Vault, which I think was fine. I own a copy. I gotta be honest, I didn't really read it that much because I was just still bad taste in my mouth, you know? Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants, didn't pick it up. Phandelver and Below, they sent me a copy because now all of a sudden, that's the other thing I should talk about, is like the apology tour hit with the OGL debacle, and I've been making videos on Forgotten Realms and other settings like this, and I have sent many emails to Wizards of the Coast over the years asking for just the early review copy of the adventures. I was like, I don't care about, you know, the Tashas and the other things and your source monster books, but like the adventures, it would be cool if I could get those the like week early. They sent them out for review copies. I could read through it and I could have all these videos on like the lore and history of this and how it fits into your setting, but they would never respond to me, never. And I don't know if I just wasn't like, I wasn't big enough, or they didn't care, or they had a bad team. It could have been a lot of things, but it was really funny that after the OGL debacle, I started getting emails and it's like, hey, we want to work with you. And I'm like, since when? Like, what's happening? But they sent me a copy of Phandelver and Below. I don't know. And then we had like, it's a fine adventure, whatever. But Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse came out. Was very excited about this, but also very frustrated and hurt by Spelljammer. That I didn't have my hopes up. And when it came out, I got a review copy sent to me and I checked it out and I was like, okay, that's cool. Like there's lots of cool stuff in there. I still have some videos I want to make on like I want to make a video on all the gate towns, because I think those are interesting places you can run around to. And but again, it's hard to do that when I have the Hasbro there glooming at me, being like, why are you supporting this? Deck of Many Things came out in November, and it honestly seems like a great product. I really am looking forward to the physical product when it arrives next year, because of the printing delays that they had to do that, which is, I mean, as far as Hasbro not wanting any more bad press for D&D, they're doing a great job of like reaching out to people like other influencers, and they're reaching out to they're reaching out to other influencers, and they're also like checking the work of the stuff that they're working on. Like, oh, maybe this is, you know, it's got a printing error. I probably shouldn't like send that out to a whole bunch of customers. But then you like lay off 1,000 people when your CEO took a $9 million bonus the year before, or something like that. Maybe it was 7 million. So he made a total of 9 million, but like nobody needs that amount of money. That's ludicrous. The DM's Guild had an Extra Life fundraiser that apparently was very good. Chains of Asmodeus came out, or Asmodeus, and that was in October. I hear it's like, again, one of the better products that isn't made. It's on the DM's Guild, but it's made by people who love the game that can't make things for the game. So it goes into an Extra Life fundraiser, which again is like, that's props to that person for making it. And then the big two things I feel that really were huge for D&D in 2023 were Baldur's Gate 3, Game of the Year, super awesome. Like people are loving it. Like I have so many friends that were playing Baldur's Gate 3 and then being like, well, you do D&D stuff. And I was like, I do. And they want to play the tabletop game now because of that. And they're interested in the lore and the history. Like it was really cool. That Baldur's Gate 3 is great. And the D&D movie, guys, it was pretty good. Like, it was fun. I don't know if we'll get a sequel. I don't have my hopes up, but, like, I don't need a sequel. I was like, it was fun. I think it was a cool movie. I think they did a fun job. And I got to see a bunch of cool, like, locations and what have you, magic items and stuff and spells within Faerun. And so I was like, really, really cool. But in 2023, I think the biggest thing about 2023 in Dungeons & Dragons tabletop is the non-WotC products that just outshined everybody else, you know? Tales of the Valiant came out and they made their $1 million Kickstarter. That's huge. I know Celeste, she's like the lead designer on it. She's working on it. It's so cool. MCDM came out with Flee Mortals. That was awesome. But like the MCDM RPG, it's currently at 3+ million. And like they're being so open with it that I can't see them not making a good product. Now, will I pick that up and be like, oh, this isn't for me, or this is for me? Like, who knows? I might not play it because it's not for me. I'm not saying it's going to be the perfect game, but it will be somebody's perfect game. Like, it's going to be the game that somebody just like falls in love with for the rest of their life. Shadow Dark. Awesome. Huge $1 million Kickstarter for like a just rockin' thing, which I think will arrive tomorrow at my house. I'm really excited to dive. I mean, I have the PDFs, but I'm excited to dive into the physical book. Knave 2nd edition. Ben Milton, awesome guy, doing really cool things with his YouTube channel and everything else. And Knave was great. Maze Rats is still one of my favorites. And for a Knave 2nd edition, this is like huge. Candela Obscura came out, and to mixed reviews, but I think, props to Critical Role for building their first game. And I think it's given them a lot of insight on how to handle Daggerheart whenever that comes out. And honestly, Daggerheart should just take lessons from the MCDM RPG and how they're doing it, because I feel like Critical Role could dominate if they just get the right designers and publicly are very open about what they're doing. But I don't know how companies work, so maybe that's not what they have to do. DCC, Goodman Games came out with like lots of stuff, and they had lots of Kickstarters this year. But specifically, the Dying Earth setting was phenomenal, and that might have been a Kickstarter that was in 2022 that filled in 2023. I think that's what it was. But I was very excited to get my hands on DCC Dying Earth, and I've been having a lot of fun going through that and playing those adventures, and I intend to continue playing through those. So if you're interested in that, I've got a second channel, Jordan's Jocular Junction, and I cover a whole bunch of DCC stuff, including Dying Earth. And DCC 100 came out, so that's 100 plus adventures that they've created over the years. But DCC 100 is this like level 5 or 6 dungeon that rotates. It's so cool, and I'm going to do a video on that at some point. I'm a big fan of Monaco Games, and they had lots of cool stuff this year. So like their Cypher system, they have We're All Mad Here, which is like the fairy Alice in Wonderland type of setting for Cypher. And The Stars Are Fire, which is the space one, and Godforsaken. But then, and Godforsaken, I think, is, I'm actually not sure. I'll have to look it up. But they also have Claim the Sky, which is superhero, Stay Alive, which is horror, Rust and Redemption, which is like the Weird West, and It's Only Magic, which is like modern magic, that the last two are not released yet. I mean, Cypher's getting some love. And if you are like, I don't know if I like Numenera or if I like the Cypher system, it might just be that you don't have the setting that you need. And although Monty Cook is strange, like he even made a game called The Strange, and it was too strange for me, which is saying something. I was like, I just didn't get into the Strange. The Cypher system is a solid system. And if you can find the setting that delivers, then that system, I think, will shine for you, because it's just solid gameplay. And of course, there were loads of OSR supplements, zines, and games. I've been on itch.io doing a lot of like research and reading, and there's just really cool stuff out there. What did I do in 2023? It was kind of interesting because of the OGL debacle and a lot of life stuff. I didn't make as many videos, I thought, but then I was looking at it. So on the main channel, I made 19 plus videos. I say plus because there were a few that were kind of like unboxing or things like that, which I don't know if they really counted, but like 19 videos last year was pretty good for me. I'm just me, like I don't have a team. And then on the Jocular Junction, I also made 19 videos, those are a little easier to film and do because it's less research and less writing that I have to do. So I think that was really cool. And my other things that happened in 2023 for Jordan is my house was under construction for 4 months. So after January, beginning of February, my water pipe burst under my front lawn, and we had water everywhere, and there was like freezing problems and all this other stuff. Because of that, they had to rip up the bathroom and then drill into it and put a new pipe there. And so then we had to redo the bathroom. And then the water heater died, and I had to get that replaced. And then shortly after that, the AC died, and I had to get that replaced. And it was just a really difficult summer. It was just really tough trying to figure that out. But like the whole house is repaired now, and we haven't had any problems in 3 or 4 months. So knock on wood. Stuff that I have been consuming in 2023 is I've been listening to Between Two Cairns. Yokai and Brad do a great job talking about modules that they want to run in different systems and things like that. And it's just a really chummy podcast where the two of them, you can tell that they're friends and they're both game designers and they have interesting things to say about certain games. So I've been really enjoying Between Two Cairns. Sly Flourish has a YouTube channel and he's been doing, I think he does this live on Sunday mornings or maybe Saturday mornings. And then he uploads it Monday morning and that's when I catch it. But on his YouTube channel on Monday, he's got a great channel where he kind of talks about the news of the week. He answers Patreon questions and then he has like a topic or a highlight. It might be like a Kickstarter or it might be like, how do I handle this? And he just kind of dives into it. Really, really enjoying it. Other things that happened is my kiddo turned 4, which is crazy. So I've got a 4-year-old kid now who's getting into games and we're playing Legos. That's really, really awesome. Game wise, I ran my home table because I didn't want to play D&D anymore. So I ran my table. I said, hey, do you want to play Dungeon Crawl Classics? And they said yes. So we ran through Hot Springs Island for the second time for me. I ran it for 5e. Now I'm running it for DCC, and I ran DCC Hot Springs Island, had so much fun. And then midway through that, we jumped over to Perils on the Purple Planet, which is a great supplement for Dungeon Crawl Classics and really interesting new mechanics and things like that. And Perils on the Purple Planet is awesome. And I was always very happy to get through that. And we didn't finish it, but they're really on the cusp of like the final encounter. And then Christmas hit and we all got busy. So January, we're going to finish Peril on the Purple Planet. And then I don't know what I'm going to play next. We're going to figure it out. Probably Pangea, but we're going to figure it out. I ran my first convention game. This was for a local convention, but I just was like, hey, I want to run a convention game. So I did Sailors on the Starless Sea for DCC, and I ran a whole bunch of people for that. Complete strangers, and it was awesome. They had a blast. We had so much fun. And then there's a local place in my town that they've been doing Friday night like quick shots. So every other week that they kind of have a quick shot night where you can usually people will run a 2 to 3 hour session of D&D, but all things are up for grabs. And so some people are running Call of Cthulhu and things like that. And so I ran some DCC Dying Earth stuff there, and I hope to keep doing that again in 2024. I think that'll be really fun, and I'm having a lot of time with that. I kept working on Modular D6, and if you don't know about that, I started kind of readapting the Open D6 system, which was like made by West End Games a long time ago, and I kind of just I like D6 systems, and I was playing around with it, and I think it's really cool. And so I made this system called Modular D6 that's really rough, but it's fun to do game design stuff. And then I wrote a supplement called Logistical Locks, which is how I like to generate locks and keys for them, and how to pick them. Like, do they require a special key? What's the DC? And you can kind of create locks, not on the fly, but like if you're doing a dungeon, you can kind of create locks and give your players hints. And then also ways for other players to jump in and help with a lockpick check. So it's not like the wizard could help with a magical lock-picking check for the thief or the rogue to finalize. 5e compatible, super fun. And if you're interested in that, I've got links to it down below in the doobly-doo. And then I wrote and published a game on itch.io called Mecha Goons, where I took the Tunnel Goons formula and I adapted it into giant robot mechs fighting each other. And so you are a pilot that pilots a mech. It's called Mecha Goons. It's really simple, but it was a step into game design, and I had a lot of fun with it. And so you can also check that out. And that one's free, I believe. You can donate or you can check it. And then other highlights for me was Gen Con 2023, and that was so much fun. I saw a lot of good friends, old and new, made some new friends, saw some old friends, ran around, played games, like played Dragonbane and I don't know, just a bunch of, I just always have a good time at Gen Con, and I love being able to see my friends again. It's super fun, and I am hoping to go again in the future. This next section is called What Did I Learn in 2023? And I mean that in like, I mean that in the sense of like, what worldview kind of shifted in me, not just, facts that I've learned, and I think it was just that Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro, and I'm mostly going to say Hasbro, was just, it was an eye-opening to remember that they are a for-profit, publicly traded company. And so they will never do things that are for the good of the employee, or for the good of the game, unless it makes money. And I think that D&D at its core is one of those things where you like it so much, you want to share this with someone. And I think a lot about the OSR people and how many people write these fantastic games and they'll sell them for like $1, or adventures for $1, or like, here are free copies. And there's one side of my brain that's like, well, they have to do that because, nobody will pay $40 for it and stuff. And I was like, but it's worth $40. But then another part of my brain is like, I think they just want people to play it. Like they're proud of what they made and they want people to go out and see it. And the stuff that's been coming out of Hasbro it's just not fun. It's not exciting. It's really sad. Like Spelljammer was like half finished and not good. And, Planescape was fine, but the adventure kind of was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I feel like I do all this other stuff. So why am I paying nearly $100 for a 3-book set of something that I'm probably never going to use? It's one of those things where I don't know how to necessarily put it into words, because I don't want to bash on the people that worked on it and love that product. And I guess I think about some of those older settings and how, even for me, like nostalgia is a thing and it's a powerful thing. And I like the idea that that Forgotten Realms has this history, and I like the idea that we have all this 2nd edition Planescape stuff to pull from. And maybe this is what a brand new player needs as an introduction to the Planes, but I'll never be a brand new player. I'll never have that introduction to this unless it's a new setting. And I don't see Hasbro doing a new setting because they don't make new things. Hasbro just exists to own something that's already been done and move forward with it. And so I don't think we'll ever get that like magic Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins campaign setting of completely new and really accurately reflects the rules that are there. I met Keith Baker at Gen Con very, very briefly. And I remember I was really sad that his Eberron content was not lucrative enough for him to justify spending time and money on it as like a company and a project. He said if there was interest, he would write about Eberron all day long, all whatever. And it just makes me sad because there could have been a contract that Hasbro could have made with Keith Baker to say, you know what, normal people can't make Eberron Kickstarters, but you can. And guess what? The more Eberron stuff you make, the more Eberron from the Rising from the Last War we sell. So go ahead. We don't have to do anything. Your name is Keith Baker. You're already tied to D&D. And Hasbro never did that. Like they never just said like, Keith Baker, you can do this. So instead, he had to do everything through the DMs Guild because he was not allowed to publish anything in Eberron otherwise. And so, in a way, Hasbro forced Keith Baker to not be able to make Eberron stuff anymore because he had to give 50+% of his profits to Hasbro in order to print on demand, sell PDFs through the DMs Guild. And the stuff he was making for Eberron is fantastic, and it really fleshed out the setting. It really helped helped me out when I was building an Eberron campaign. I didn't actually get to play it. And you can tell that he loves Eberron so much and he loves D&D so much, but Hasbro will never let him show that love unless they get all the money. And that it was another thing that just made me say it sad. I want to talk about the future though. So my 13-year-old nephew is running D&D. He loves D&D. And I love D&D, so we talk D&D. And so I asked him about his game one day. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing? You're DMing a game? Like, what are your players doing?" And he's like, "Oh man, they're flying through space. They're visiting planets. They're fighting monsters and aliens. There's this like weird thing happening." And he just went on and on about how excited he was, and his players love it. Like, just 13-year-old boys running D&D. And I was like, "Oh, like, did you read Spelljammer? Did you pick that up?" And his response was, "What's Spelljammer?" He doesn't have any of the extra books. He doesn't have any of these Spelljammer campaign settings or any of these other things. He's literally just making it all up with the books that he has. And it made me think, like, we're going to be okay. Like, the future is all right. We're going to be okay. Because there's people like me who love Spelljammer and wanted, when the new Spelljammer came out, we were all excited for this and this and this. But deep down, nobody needs Spelljammer. Nobody needs ship rules. Nobody needs miniatures and all this other stuff. Like, he's playing, he's doing everything he can with what he has, and it's more than you can imagine. So I was thinking about this. I was like, this is the best response I could ever get. He doesn't run published adventures. He's having the time of his life. He's making up space rules, and he isn't paying Hasbro a dime because they don't own or control his fun. There's nobody out there that's coming out with the next Magic card that's going to totally obliterate the way that you play Magic the Gathering. He just plays and he has so much fun with his friends. So all of the things that happened in 2023, I wanted to take that moment and say, like, D&D can't let us down. Hasbro can let us down. But D&D is like a culture and a way to tell stories and a connection to people. It can't let us down. That's what it is. So, like, we've got this. You got this. You're going to be okay. Just remember that there is a random 13-year-old boy out there that doesn't even think of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast when they play D&D. They think it's just this really cool thing that they do with their friends, and they're not wrong. What's going on for me in 2024? So I get little bursts of creativity, but I'm really bad at following up and finishing projects. But I started Modular D6 many, many years ago, and that RPG system shifted into a D12 system called Tolv, which was lots of fun. And then that shifted into, I need to learn a lot of these OSR systems to really understand what I should do. And then the more I researched a bunch of systems, that made me think of writing a game where everybody's a skeleton, and we're going to call it Boned. And you're like a random necromancer skeleton, and you got to go on like crappy jobs because you're just like a magically animated pile of bones. And so I was working on Boned for a long time, writing like a dungeon and stuff and having a lot of fun and trying to pick the right system. And while I was trying to pick the right system, that shifted back into like, well, I wonder if I could use Modular D6 for this. So that I started writing more stuff for Modular D6. And this is why I have unfinished project after unfinished project, is because I zig and I'm like, oh, something shiny. And I jump over there. I need assistance. I need focus, basically. And so guess what? Friend of me and friend of the show, or friend of Jordan with a PH in Jocular Junction, Lex Mandrake, he was like, hey, let's make the Jordan's Jocular Junction like a bigger channel. So like, we'll just make it as a channel to celebrate RPGs. No Hasbro, none of this other stuff. And I really loved that. So we've already been doing Games with Lex, which is like, we kind of talk about these fun indie itch.io games that we find. And we've got a lot more of those planned for 2024. We've got some actual plays planned for 2024 of non-Hasbro products, so non-Hasbro games. It's going to be a lot of DCC to start because that's what we were really excited about running, but very excited for that. And then other like RPGs that I find interesting. I'm going to do some like deep dives on, I don't know, specific systems. And if there's an interest, I also think I'm going to do some development vlogs where I talk about either Boned or Tolv or Modular D6, but I'll be like, hey, here's what I was working on and here's what is interesting. I would not consider myself a game developer, but I think a lot of people who are in the tabletop sphere enough, you start like, oh, I want to try something like that. And that's where I am, is I don't want to build something that's going to take over the world and stuff like that, but I like the idea of tinkering and playing with systems and games. And I kind of want to make my own game and put it out there. So that's where a lot of these things came from. And so maybe people are interested in vlogs for that. So I don't know. And that's all going to happen on the Jordan's Jocular Junction, which is my second channel. Links down below. Now for this channel, I think I'm going to try and cover some non-D&D settings. Pangea comes to mind. A lot of you people in my last video were asking me about this book, which is Pangea, the Star Shaman Song of Pangea. David Somerville wrote this, and it's a primitive fantasy setting for D&D 5th edition, where you play, I don't want to say cavemen, but like there's dinosaurs and weird monsters. And the idea of Pangea is that prehistoric, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a prehistoric setting for Dungeons and Dragons. So all of the planes that ever existed, the plane of fire and water and all this stuff, they're all bunched together into a big landmass called Pangea. And it's the idea that like you could walk from the plane of water to the plane of fire. Oh, it's right over there. You just got to go over those mountains, you know? Like the planes are slowly breaking apart as the world is becoming anew and stuff is changing. And that is full of so many good campaign hooks and stuff like that. Like I was telling this about some of my players, and they were just very, very excited about it. So I'm going to try and run a Pangea game here at my house. And I think I talked to David Somerville about that. He's like all for me talking up Pangea. So he's like, yes, make lore videos on Pangea. So maybe that's kind of the next thing I'll do, but it's a really interesting setting. Like I said, all of the things are smushed together. All of the gods are not yet these like omnipotent, powerful beings. So it's like, I'm the god of this river. I'm the god of that hill over there. And so when you go talk to the god of that hill over there, he's like, you know what, go kill that other god and bring me his bones and I can eat him and then I'll get stronger. And so it's this like the gods are trying to like kill one another, but they can't leave their area of influence. There are dwarves in the game who part of their like every fiber in their being is like, we just need to create things. So they mine and they create these beautiful things, and then they like caverns and underground dungeons and stuff, and then they just leave because it's part of creation is what's important, not like using what they create. So they migrate to a different area. There's dinosaur people, there's all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm really looking forward to Pangea. And so if you guys want some Pangea content, let me know. Other things to talk about are Monty Cook Games has Planebreaker, which is kind of his version of Planescape. The Planebreaker itself is a big comet that like has a city on it that bursts through. It's 5e compatible. I thought that would be really cool. I don't own Ptolus, but that's Monty's like big city that he played for decades in. And apparently Ptolus is really, really awesome. I'm also sitting on a lot of Dark Sun scripts that I've written, and I don't have them recorded, but that is another option that I'm going to do for 2024. And then Historica Arcanum, they have lots of cool new settings, and their company is so cool. They've been sending me some stuff here and there, and I think it would be really fun to dive into the lore of the City of the Crescent and like Historica Arcanum as a whole, and like how would you approach and run these? I don't think it's going to be like, of all of these, I don't think I'm going to like the whole channel will just be Pangea from now until forever. But there's enough there for like, you know, this is Pangea month and this is Dark Sun month and Historica Arcanum month. And I think that could be a lot of fun. I want to run some of my smaller systems. Like I want to actually playtest Tolv and Modular D6, and I want to playtest Boned and run through that. I do play 5e, but if I play 5e, I want to play shorter games, like a 5 to 6 session adventure. I think with the amount of interest I have in all of these different tabletop RPGs, the idea of a year to 2 year long campaign is past me. I want to do some non-Hasbro stuff for a while, and a game that has consumed me ever since I purchased it is Invisible Sun by Monty Cook Games, and I've only ran one session of it, and it was fun. And it's really confusing and weird, but I would totally I think I would love to run a Invisible Sun game. Probably an at-home game. I don't know. I'm not a good streamer when it comes to this. But speaking of that, we are going to try and finish the Great Modron March over at Nerd Immersion's channel with the Banana Bunch, so that could be fun. So I don't know. That was my very long rant. There was so many things that happened in 2024, and Wizards, WotC, just awful stuff. But overall, I think the future is bright, and I think you should play Pathfinder 2 and Tales of the Valiant and Knave 2 and Shadowdark, and you should play a lot of these, and you should be comfortable taking the things you like from Hasbro, but not relying on Hasbro. And it'll be an interesting time with it being the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons next year and all of this crappy stuff that we're feeling. So, but be good to one another, treat other people well. Like, they're all human beings. They're really, really cool. And thank you guys for listening and subscribing and chatting with me. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.